Imagine having a first draft that you've spent years on. You know the story has something. You know it matters to you. But every time you sit down to work on it, you hit this wall, this feeling that maybe what you're doing is making it worse rather than better. You don't know what's wrong exactly. You just know that something essential is missing, and you don't have the direction to fix it. And then imagine going from that place, that lost, second guessing, maybe I can't do this place, to having clarity on your characters, on your story's emotional foundation, on exactly what you need to do and in what order. Going from, I'm not sure I'm ever going to be able to finish this to, I can and I will. That is Carrie's story. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how she did it. Because if you are anywhere in the territory of, I know something's wrong, but I don't know what, or I've been working on this book for a long time and it still doesn't feel right, or I can't seem to trust anything that I write for my characters, then Carrie's experience is going to give you a lot of hope. And more than hope, it's going to give you a clear picture of what's actually possible when you build characters from the inside out. Okay, so let me give you some context on Carrie, because I think it's important that you hear this. Carrie is not a beginner. She's a former teacher, a published short story writer, someone who genuinely understands writing and storytelling and has for many years. She's exactly the kind of author this playlist is made for. Committed, intelligent, and already in the trenches of figuring out her story. But she had been working on her novel for years and was still having a hard time nailing it down and getting it on the page the way she wanted to.
Lisa, I've been working on it for years. And I have a first draft, which I knew was important for me to tell the story, but I knew I was not telling the story the way I needed to tell it.
Right, so as you heard, she had the story, she had a draft. What she didn't have was the clarity or confidence that she was building it correctly, that she was building it in a way that actually made readers feel the way that she needed them to feel. And here's what happened as a result of that.
And so what happened was I got really lost my self-confidence. I wasn't sure that what I was doing was right. Every time I tried to improve it, I felt like there was a possibility I was making it worse.
Mm.
I just didn't have direction.
And I want to really reiterate this part because I think this is what so many authors and writers feel, but very rarely say out loud. The feeling of every time I touch it, I might actually be making it worse. Okay, that sucks. That's really a difficult place to be in. But I also want you to recognize that having that feeling means that you care deeply about your story. It's not someone who's just writing a story to say they wrote one or writing as fast as they can to publish and try to make a bunch of money. It's the feeling of someone who really cares about the outcome of their story and the way that it affects readers, but has not been given the tools to succeed in the way they want to. And having that feeling, being in that place, creates this paralysis, this loop where you know something is wrong, but you're so afraid of making it worse that you can barely move forward. Does that sound familiar? Drop a yes in the comments if you've been there, because you are not alone in this. Now, Carrie had also tried to find her way out of this on her own, the way most committed writers do. She'd been watching presentations, studying craft content, trying to piece together an approach from multiple sources.
What had started to happen was I just got into the habit of, watching a whole lot of presentations, some of which were really good. But when you watch a whole lot of presentations, you can also get yourself really confused
Mm-hmm.
because they approach so many different parts of where you might be up to with a story. And although I found it very engaging, it probably confused me more.
Okay, and I hear this constantly, you guys. The craft content that's out there is not bad. A lot of it is genuinely good and has a lot of value. But it addresses so many parts of the process, all in just different orders and different sequences, that it becomes almost impossible to know what to do first or what the actual problems you're having are. You can tell me the symptoms all day. I know you know those things, but you don't understand what's actually causing them. And sometimes it's hard to tell if implementing the advice you're getting is even going to fix the thing that's broken. And the result, and this is the part that really got me when Carrie said this, the result was that she started to wonder if she was ever going to be able to finish her story at all.
Yes, I did
Yeah.
wonder that.
She said this with such honesty, and I really appreciated that because that is the realest, most vulnerable version of where a lot of writers end up when they've been working on something for a long time without the right framework. And if that's you, if you're genuinely wondering if you have what it takes to get this done, I want you to stay with this video because what changed for Carrie is going to be directly relevant for you. So here's what happened. Carrie found my program, the Emotional Storytellers Intensive, and she made the decision to go all in. And I asked her what it was that made her decide to try my program when she'd already watched and studied a lot of other things.
One of them is the importance of including emotion in writing. So, as a reader, I really have no interest in stories that don't have emotion. And as a writer, if there's no emotion in my writing, I'm not interested in doing it. It would fall short of my own standards. It's
Right.
just not something I would want to do.
Right? That's the thing. She wasn't coming in looking for a plot formula or a structure template. She was coming in because she knew the emotional layer was what she needed. And she knew she hadn't quite cracked it yet, which is exactly the gap that we've been talking about throughout these last few videos. And what Carrie found inside the program, and this is what I want to focus on because it maps directly into what I've been teaching you here, was that the things she needed weren't complicated. They were foundational. They were the things she should have been taught from the beginning, but they weren't being taught.
In fact, looking at them, I couldn't believe that I'd never seen them before. I couldn't believe that I hadn't thought that you need a character Bible for your character. I couldn't believe that I had never thought of that before. That so some things were almost too simple.
Oh, I love this so much because that is exactly the kind of experience I hear over and over again for authors who go through my programs. It's not, wow, that was so complicated and advanced. Of course not. It's, wait, that's it? Why has nobody ever just said that clearly before? How have I never thought about that before? And remember that Carrie is a teacher and has taught writing. So even if you have some sort of background, fiction is just different. You have to tweak the way you look at things, but once you do, everything just starts to click into place. The things that make the biggest difference in your characters are often the simplest ones. It's just that no one has pointed them out to you before. We talked about this in the previous video in this playlist, so if you haven't watched it yet, go back and watch it because the character Bible is one of those foundational things that authors consistently underestimate.
You work it out, you're consistent because otherwise you're clearly going to lose track.
Consistency in writing your book is not only about not making continuity errors, it's about maintaining the emotional and psychological truth of who your character is, okay? So, what their wound is, their limiting belief, their voice, their personality, you have to maintain those things across somewhere, I would say, between 200 and 500 pages, or maybe more, depending on the length of novel you're writing. And without a central document, you're relying on your memory, and memory drifts. We have a lot of moving parts in our manuscripts that we have to keep track of. But more than that, we're human beings, okay? We make mistakes and we have daily lives. It's not like we all just sit down every day to write our books in a vacuum and have no other obligations. We have families, we have work, we have responsibilities around the house and in our communities, and there is so much to keep track of, okay? That's why you're not always going to remember what your character's eye color was 300 pages ago. And when your character drifts, your readers will not only feel it, sometimes they pounce on it and point it out in the reviews. You don't want that. The second thing that cracked open for Carrie was understanding the internal arc. So, again, that's the wound, the limiting belief, the transformation. And understanding that those things are the foundation for the entire story.
So where I am at the moment is that I get all of the internal arcs sorted to work out what my characters are like, how they express emotion.
And that right there is the sequence. It's the process. Get the internal arcs sorted. Know your characters, not just what they look like and what they want, but who they are psychologically. Know how they express emotion. And then write, not the other way around. Carrie also said something that I thought was a really beautiful way of putting it about what happens when you finally have the structure in place. Right.
Once you know how story works, it does make it a lot easier to make sure that your story will work.
Simple, but that's it, isn't it? Clarity creates confidence. When you know how something works, and we're talking really know it inside and out, not just vaguely, you can trust yourself to execute it. And that trust is what leads you to stop second guessing every scene and start writing with intention. It's what helps you go from frustration to finished. And I want to share one more thing that Carrie said because I think it captures the transformation she went through better than anything I could say on her behalf. I asked her if you could go back and talk to yourself before you took the program, what would you tell that version of you?
I suppose one of the things that happened was I went from I'm not sure I can do this to I can do this.
Mm.
It was a difference in maybe I might to I can and I will. I just will.
Mhm.
So in a way, the plan is laid out for your journey. It's like any difficult journey. If you follow the map, you can get to where you need to go.
Maybe I might to I can and I will. You guys, that is not a small shift. That is the shift. And it didn't come from Carrie suddenly becoming more talented or more disciplined or more motivated. It came from her having a map, a clear, specific, sequenced map of what to do and in what order, so that she wasn't improvising anymore. She wasn't guessing anymore. She wasn't wondering whether every decision she made or her character made was bringing the story closer to what it needed to be or pushing it further away. And when I asked her what she would tell another writer who knows the craft but still can't get the emotional layer to land, this is what she said.
So put the bones of the story down. Um, Not just what you need to do, but the sequence in which you need to do it. And when you're in that position and you've got a good knowledge of your characters, then it's much easier to put the emotion into the writing because you start to know who they are and the important parts of who they are that need to be communicated to the reader.
Sequence, okay? Character knowledge first, emotional depth follows. That is the framework. This is exactly what I've been trying to tell you in this playlist. So here's what I want you to understand about Carrie's story and about why this framework works for authors who are where she was. Carrie didn't need more craft content. She had plenty of that. She needed the right framework applied in the right sequence. She needed someone to tell her what the actual foundation of an emotional character is, what that looks like, as in wound, limiting belief, transformation. Yes, I'm going to keep repeating that. And then she needed someone to walk her through how to build it instead of just hoping that she could start writing and it would emerge on its own. Guys, we hear that so often. Just start writing. And okay, I'm not going to lie, if you are trying to build the habit of sitting down and actually getting the writing done, then that's good advice. But that's not going to tell you how to write a story that readers will love. Okay, so Carrie needed to know that a character Bible really isn't optional if you want to be successful and stop from contradicting yourself halfway through the story, okay? She needed to know that voice and personality have to be intentionally constructed, not just improvised. That the internal arc is not just this vague sense that your character changes. It's a specific psychological movement from one state and one belief to another, all mapped out before you write. When she had all of that, the confusion cleared. The second guessing quieted. The whole maybe I can't do this shifted into something else, something steadier. And that's what I want for you, for every single writer who watches this video. When you have the right framework and the right sequence and the right community, this is very, very doable and not easy doable. I don't want to say that writing isn't work, but it should be joyful. It should be fun. Because when your characters come alive on the page, when you can feel that emotional engine running underneath your story, that's why we write. That's the whole thing. And inside my program, the Emotional Storyteller Intensive, this is the kind of transformation that we're after every single day, making the characters feel real, making the stories resonate, writing things that readers just can't put down. Okay. Now, in the next video, I'm going to take everything I've talked about in this playlist over the last few videos, the wound, the limiting belief, the transformation, the voice, the personality, all of it. And I'm going to walk you through my complete framework for building characters from the inside out. Okay. The system, how it fits together, in what order, what it looks like, and putting it into practice across an entire novel. Okay. You can watch that right here. But before you go ahead and drop me a comment and tell me, does Carrie's story feel familiar to you? Are you in the I'm not sure I can finish this phase, or the I know something's wrong, but I don't know how to fix it phase, or somewhere else entirely? So go ahead and do that now, and then I will see you in the next video.